Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. Today, Jennifer and I are joined by Valerie Christine. And Valerie is a trauma and anxiety coach who helps women heal past trauma so they can feel confidence, peace, and self-love. That is a very tall order, and Lord knows so many of us need that. Thank you, Valerie, for doing this work and for being with us today.
Of course. Thank you both for having me. I'm really just excited to share what I do and help any listeners out there that have dealt with past trauma and are really looking to feel that self-love and confidence and be able to fulfill their purpose in this lifetime.
Yay, welcome.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So before we get started in exactly what you do now, can you just give us a little bit of your history, what led to your current work?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So my life led to my current work. I honestly feel like since I was born, I've been every experience has led me to this path. I went through a lot of childhood trauma and different types of abuse, emotional, physical. Then at the age of 15, I went through a sexual assault. And that really is where things took a big turn. And from the age of 15 to 29, I really suffered a lot. I went through years of therapy, every kind of therapy you can imagine, cognitive behavioral, EMDR, exposure therapy, just a lot of different stuff, medication. I did acupuncture, I did yoga, I read self-help books, I listened to podcasts. I did everything I could get my hands on, and I still was feeling the effects of PTSD, anxiety, and depression. And over the years, I kind of became numb to that pain. Until the age of 29, I went through another sexual assault, and that one absolutely destroyed me. Because the one thought that kept me going was, you'll never have to go through that again. And then when I went through it again, I just felt like I could never be safe, and I would never have control over my body. Other people would always be able to do what they wanted with my body. And so I was devastated. I got to the point where I was no longer working. I was on a leave of absence from the effects of PTSD, multiple panic attacks, flashbacks, just so depressed. I go from my bed to my couch, bed to couch all day for weeks. And then I discovered coaching, and I hired a coach. And within 3 weeks, I was back to work. I was completely free from symptoms of PTSD and anxiety and depression for the first time in 14 years. And I was able to come totally off my medication over the next couple of months as I tapered off. And ever since I learned really the tools to rewire the brain and get back to that pre-trauma state, I quit my job. I started a business and have begun working full time, helping women all over the world do the same thing, because this work is too valuable to do anything else with my life.
That's huge. I mean, thank you for being so open and candid. I'm really curious. I mean, well, first off, kudos to you that you sought the help that you needed and you did the work, which is amazing. So seriously, hats off to you for doing that. That's amazing. I'm really curious, what was it that helped you? What was it about that coach or the tools that you learned that finally changed that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not going to say that the therapy and the medication didn't help, because I think that the medication provided me a crutch at times when I was in the depths of it that helped me not do anything that I would regret as far as hurting myself. So I do always tell survivors, there's nothing wrong with medication, right? My goal for myself personally is always to be able to manage my emotions, able to control my thoughts. That's always what I focus on. But I do think that the medication did help me in the beginning, especially when I was feeling suicidal. And I thought that therapy did help me in the beginning as well, because I was in denial. I didn't tell anyone except for one person that I was sexually assaulted at the age of 15. And that one person was my best friend. And she ended up then dating the rapist.
Oh,
Oh my
Right.
God.
Now, to be fair, I don't think I understood at the time what had happened. And I don't
right.
think I communicated to her
Okay.
the violence that occurred. I think that in my communication was more of we slept together rather than I was sexually assaulted and I was unconscious. After I told her and she dated him, then I made a vow to myself to never tell anybody because that was so insanely painful to lose my best friend and to go through that. So I didn't tell anyone for 2 years. And I only told because my family was so worried about me. They were threatening to institutionalize me because I was so depressed. I didn't want to do that. And so I told them what happened. And I think that, at that point, I developed a lot of beliefs, right? Beliefs about myself, beliefs about the world, beliefs about men. And those beliefs were what was holding me back from truly recovering. So the therapy helped me in the beginning because it got me out of that denial stage. It helps me say what happened out loud to someone who validated me. And I think that truly is the greatest gift of therapy. And then after that, I got stuck because in therapy, I was repeating my story over and over, reliving it over and over. And I got stuck in therapy and I wasn't moving forward. I wasn't living the life I wanted. I didn't feel how I wanted. And what coaching did was it said, we know you have a story. We understand it. Do you understand it? Yeah, cool. We're not going to have you rehash that. We're going to figure out the tools to take you from where you are to where you want to be. And the biggest breakthrough for me was realizing that staying stuck in my trauma was actually meeting my needs as a human because it gave me comfort.
Okay.
It gave me certainty. And I lacked certainty because in these scenarios from childhood to the sexual assaults, I was out of control. Things happened to me. So I learned through the coach that through staying depressed and staying anxious, I created a sense of control for myself and a sense of stability in my life.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It's kind of counterintuitive,
It
right?
totally makes sense.
Yeah. It was the one thing that you could control. It was the one thing that you expected. You're like, okay, this I know.
Yes. And none of this was conscious.
Right.
All of this was very subconscious, but by talking about it, it brought it to, I was like, whoa, like I'm getting chills right now. Like this has provided me with stability, and not just stability, but a lot of significance. I felt really special and really important and really unique and really different from everyone around me because I had been through horrific things and they hadn't.
Wow.
Anytime I messed up, I was like, well, of course I didn't do better. I was raped. Well, of course I don't have healthy relationships. I was raped. And I explained everything in my life away by, well, how could you expect it from me? I didn't have the emotional support as a kid.
Yeah.
And I used it as an excuse without realizing I was using it as an excuse. I just thought, well, I'm broken now. I'm damaged now. Of course, this is how a broken, damaged person acts. And that third breakthrough was realizing I wasn't broken. I wasn't damaged.
Right.
Yeah. That I was just coping the best I could with the things that happened in my life. I was doing exactly what I should do. My brain was reacting exactly how the human brain does react. All my reactions were normal, but they're not helpful. And so then we did deeper work on how to change my reactions from the panic attacks, the anxiety, the bad relationship patterns into patterns that were more helpful for me. And that was more like the nitty gritty tools, daily habits, things like that.
That's huge. That's huge. And I mean, I'm kind of blown away. You say it just so matter of factly, like, oh, these things that I did that changed my life, and now I'm helping all these other people. I mean, this is huge. I really want to get into maybe a little more specifics, maybe like what tools did you learn that you were able to then put in place to help you go from, panic attacks to starting to be on the other side of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my favorite ones is one that I created based on a lot of different brain research and a lot of different people. Some of the people that inspire me and helped me and my greatest mentors are, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, Mel Robbins. Really, those are my top three. And so anything by them, honestly, I suggest reading, listening to.
Mhm.
And that's where a lot of things I do were born. And then
Okay.
from there, I adjusted them to be appropriate for trauma healing. And so I
Nice.
made them just more specialized so that, to address the specific symptoms. I'll teach you guys today one of my favorite tools, which I
Oh,
call
good.
brain talk. And we can actually do it like, right now. So
Sure.
anyone that's listening, and of course you too as well, if you just think about a scenario in which you felt an emotion you really didn't want to feel, and you can close your eyes, feel free to go back to that moment. And whatever that emotion was, just kind of imagine that scenario again and imagine feeling how you felt. And then what we're going to do is once you're to that place, we're first going to address the brain. Now, the difference between the brain and the mind is that right now I'm talking to the mind. It's the rational part, it's the part that wants the best for you. And the brain is the reactionary part. It's the survival mechanism. It's the part that causes the anxiety. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to identify the person we're talking to. And we're talking to the brain, that survival brain. We're not talking to our mind. We're not talking to ourselves. And so the first thing that you say to yourself is, hey, brain. You just do that in your head.
Hey, brain.
Perfect. And once you say, hey, brain, now you've identified that you're talking to the survival part of your brain. And then you acknowledge it. Because remember, your survival brain is not creating this emotion you don't like to hurt you. It's creating this emotion to help you. Emotions are messengers. And whatever emotion it has created, it's doing it in some way to protect you or serve you. So we want to make sure we acknowledge the goodness it's trying to do. And we're going to talk to the brain like you would talk to a 3-year-old child. We want to be patient. We want to be firm. We want to be loving. And so after you say, hey, brain, and you get the brain's attention, now you say, I know you're feeling blank. And Jennifer, why don't you do yours for me? I know you're feeling, and then say your emotion.
I know you're feeling scared.
Beautiful. And Raquel, if you want to do this as well, feel free.
I know you're feeling anxious.
Beautiful. And so now what we've done is we've acknowledged the brain. We've said, hey, I get it. I know you're feeling this way. And then we go to the next step and we say, because, and we finish that sentence. So it might be, hey, brain, I know you're feeling angry because you're disappointed you didn't get that promotion. And so, Jennifer, if you want to do yours, hey, brain, I know you're feeling blank because blank.
Hey, brain, I know you're feeling scared because this situation makes you unsure of how other people are going to behave.
Beautiful. And I'll have Raquel help you do the next one. And so now you've acknowledged the brain. You've not just said how it feels, but you've said why, which is very important. And then the next thing you're going to do is say the truth. So an example might be, hey, brain, I know you're feeling angry because you didn't get that promotion. The truth is, by you not getting that promotion, it allows you to explore other options, other companies that might be a better fit for you. And so the next thing is you create that truth, and that truth is the truth inside of you. It's not some positive statement. It's not lies. It's like literally, what is the truth of the situation when you boil it down? And it might not be, an extremely positive truth. It might just be neutral, and that's okay too. And so, Raquel, I'm going to have you do yours. Hey, brain, I know you're feeling blank because blank. The truth is.
Hey, brain, I know you're feeling anxious because of previous bad, disrespectful situations. But the truth is, you're safe now
Excellent.
with people who are respectful and safe.
Wonderful. And I noticed that you put a button there, which is a beautiful pattern interrupt. And by pattern interrupt, what we mean is it's going to take that previous story you're telling yourself and just put a wrench in it. And so if you add the word but before the truth is, that's even better. So very nice job. The next thing you're going to do is do actually what you were starting to do, which is affirmations. My favorite are, I'm okay, I'm safe, and I'm loved. So whichever 3 affirmations you resonate with, I'm going to have you just say them to yourself in your mind. And after you say your affirmations, I am blank, I am blank, I am blank. Then we have our final pattern interrupt, which is something that is going to involve a swear word. And the reason we do that is because swear words help us interrupt patterns because they're taboo language. And ideally, you want to do a swear word that makes you giggle, because the more you giggle, the more that interrupts the pattern as well. Laughter is a great way to break your old story. And so my favorite is, I'll take you through my whole thing. So, hey, brain, I know you're feeling angry because you didn't get that promotion. The truth is that by not getting this promotion, you can now look at other companies and possibly get an even better job. I am safe. I am loved. I am okay. And I have a new fucking job to get.
Love it.
That is so good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's so good.
And then you giggle, and now you're in a totally different state than you were before you began this, when you were feeling angry. Now you're feeling like, hee hee, I'm funny.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thanks for doing that with us.
Yeah.
You're so welcome.
I
It's one of my
totally
favorites.
dig that.
Yeah, and it's always fun to hear what my ladies in my group come up with. It's like one woman, she was like, and I have some motherfucking plants to water. I'm like, yes,
Great.
you do.
That's great.
Yeah, so there's a lot of tools, but all of them are like that, where it instantly changes your state. You don't have to wait weeks. You don't have to wait months. You don't need to take a pill. You can control your thoughts and you can control your mood.
Yeah, that's brilliant. In your groups, are you mostly working with sexual assault survivors, or are you working with all sorts of possible issues?
Great question. So we began as a group that helped sexual assault survivors only, because that was like the niche that I really felt this whole thing was born from, right? If I hadn't been sexually assaulted when I was 29, I would still be a high school teacher, which was my old job. And so I think for that reason, I gravitated towards that population. But then as I was doing the work, my clients were saying to me, like, Valerie, you're helping me heal my childhood trauma. And you're helping me heal from my first marriage. And you're helping me heal from when my mom died. And like, you don't actually only heal sexual assault, like you help us heal everything. Like, why don't you let more people into this group, because they would benefit? And I thought about it, and I talked to my mentors, and I was like, you know what? Like, you're right. These tools work no matter what the trauma is, because they're about emotional and mindset management. And really, we do a lot of other work too, like inner child healing, some energy work, where we really clear our energy of those past experiences. But ultimately, my clients were right. So I opened the program up to anyone who identifies as female or is non-binary, basically feminine energy people that have been through any sort of trauma, because the tools work.
Now, I saw on your Instagram or your Facebook, I'm not sure, you had a couple posts about coming out of the trauma and having sort of a distrust. I wouldn't say hatred, nothing that strong, but just a distrust of men, or thinking all men might be bad. And you kind of had to work through that. What did that process look like for you?
Oh, that was a hard one. That was a really hard one, because from when I was born, I couldn't trust men. When you grow up in a household where you can't trust your primary caregivers. And to be fair, I think I'm very grateful for my childhood. I wouldn't have changed a thing. I think that I love my parents. I love my childhood. But when you grow up not being able to have that secure bond with a male, and then your first sexual experience is rape, it's like I didn't have a lot of males in my life that provided me with trust, security, safety.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there were some, but they weren't intimate relationships or close relationships. It might be a manager at work that I could trust, but only in that setting, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that what I had to do is I had to, number one, heal the wounds. Otherwise, it was like every time I would have a panic attack if a man got within a foot of me, which happened a lot at the grocery store for some
Right.
reason. So I stopped grocery shopping. You know, I started ordering my groceries because I literally couldn't be around men. And so I think that the first thing that had to happen was I had to learn these tools, because when you're constantly in like sensitivity mode, it's almost like I was like covered in wounds and men were made of salt. And just being around them, I just was like, oh, this hurts, it's painful, I don't like this, it's uncomfortable. So I had to heal the wounds so that I wasn't so sensitive. And then once I healed the wounds, then I was able to say to myself, I know 3 good men. I think of 3. That one manager I had in high school, my principal, and my neighbor. And I was like, if those 3 men exist, then there has to be more.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think I made a reel about how I was talking to a man and he was like, you know, I can't trust women.
Yeah.
And I got mad at him. I was like, what are you talking about? You can't trust women. That's not true. We can't trust men. And I realized from talking with men that had also been hurt, that it goes both ways. And ultimately, it's not about men. It's not about women. It's about predators, right? And predators are predators. And
Yes.
there's more male predators than female by a lot. But that doesn't mean that the other 94% of men don't deserve to be trusted, you know?
Right. I'm just so amazed at the work that you've done and the work that you're doing with other people, and how you're just like, of course this can happen. Of course you can make these changes. You aren't presenting this as, well, this is some insurmountable thing that will take decades for you to do. These are doable things. People can get to a point where they can live their lives in a healthy way.
Yeah. And that was the biggest shock. See, before I started in the coaching world, I thought depression was lifelong. And Google will tell you it is. Google will say depression and PTSD are lifelong. And I actually had some people like fight me on this because I said, I don't have PTSD anymore. And they said, well, that's impossible, because if you were to go through another traumatic event, the PTSD would come back. I'm like, okay. But that's kind of like saying like you fell down and got a cut on your knee and it healed, but it's not really healed because you could fall again.
Wow,
Like,
that's a really good point.
and so there's this perception, and I don't say anymore that PTSD can be healed. I just say that I live symptom free from PTSD because that's the truth. And I'm sure if I went through something traumatic again, I'm sure I'd be hurt again, but I know how to heal from it. And so I think the biggest thing for me is like realizing that there is this culture that has been created that says, if you have mental health issues, you have them for life. And it's not true. It's not true. And the way that I kind of like, it was the way my mind expanded was one of my mentors said to me, you tell me you're depressed. And this was like early in my recovery. He was like, you say you're depressed, but during the break, I just saw you smiling. And I was like, well, yeah, this one said something funny. Like, well, did you feel depressed when you're smiling? I was like, no. I said, okay, then why don't right now, like, do you feel depressed right now? I'm like, a little bit. And they had me get really depressed. Like, can you like, what are you on a 10 scale? I'm like, I don't know, like a 4. And they're like, can you get me to a 10? I'm like, I guess. So I like worked really hard to get really depressed. I started looking down and breathing in and thinking about my problems and thinking about the rapes and thinking about my childhood. And sure enough, I got to a 10. And then they told me a joke. And then I burst out laughing. And they're like, where are you at right now? I'm like, I don't know, like a 1. They're like, I thought you were depressed. I'm like, I am depressed. Like, get depressed. I'm like, okay, I'll get depressed. And I got depressed again. And then they did something else to interrupt my pattern. And then I went back to a 1. And 10, 1, 10, 1, 10, 1. And they're like, do you want to be depressed? I'm like, no. Like, are you depressed? I'm like, no. And
wow,
if you interrupt your pattern enough, your brain will stop going there. It literally rewires the neural networks in your brain to happiness and calm and peace instead of depression and anxiety and panic.
Right. You're building new pathways in your brain.
Exactly. That's what I do for women. I help them build new pathways. Now, it doesn't happen in a day. That pattern interrupt happened in a day. That realization happened in a day. But the next day, my brain went right back to depression. And I had to be like, no. And every day I had to discipline it. So it's really about repetition and intensity. The harder I could laugh, the faster I got out of it. And the more often I redirected myself, the faster I created those networks over time.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Now, when we first started today, you said that you had years of therapy, or a lot of therapy, that you had to go over the story, rehash the story. I have a question about somebody who maybe knows they're a victim of sexual assault or assumes it, but doesn't remember the story. A lot of people suppress memories. In order to use your tools, do they even need to know the details of their sexual assault?
It's better if they don't. And so studies have shown that when the mind represses a memory, it's actually more helpful for the healing when that memory is not remembered. And I thought that was really interesting as well. They did several studies on it and had different groups of people, one in which they hypnotized them and forced them to remember it, and another group where they didn't. And then they went through the same treatment. And the group that had remembered their repressed memories made significantly less progress than people that didn't. So I get that question a lot. And I just tell people, you don't need to remember. In fact, we don't even talk about what happened. The only time we really talk about what happened is during inner child healing. And that's a very supervised meditation and visualization where you don't relive it, but you observe it from the perspective of your adult self. And there's things that I put in place to make sure that you don't relive it and that you don't get enmeshed in it. And so that's the closest we get to really their stories. And they don't say them out loud. They simply observe what happened. And then we go through the process of healing what happened. And then they don't revisit it anymore mentally or emotionally in their waking life.
So there's no like re-traumatization by retelling that story again and again, or bringing up a story you don't even know about.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was actually watching the new Sex and the City series last night, and Just Like That. Yeah. And it was the episode where Carrie was reading her book when she was reliving Big's death. And she couldn't get through this chapter when she was recording her audiobook because she kept breaking down, and they would make her reread it, the death scene. And she would break down, and they make her reread, and she'd break down. I was like, oh my God, this is like what I felt like in therapy all those years. It was like rereading the worst chapter of your life over and over and over, for what?
You know? That's like, that would set that groove. Like if we're talking about patterns in the mind, like that would set that groove really deep. So you're just, you're just in that groove and you can't get out of it.
Exactly. And so women come to me and they say, I'm stuck. I feel so stuck. Like I hear that word all the time. I'm like, of course you do.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I've been in therapy 2 years. I'm like, of course you have. I'm like,
yeah.
And I don't think all therapy is bad. I think, of all the types I did, EMDR helped me reduce the number of panic attacks. But then it plateaued. Yeah. So it's a type of therapy where you use eye movement. And so basically we have the two hemispheres of the brain. So it's like this. And when you look side to side, then what it does is it allows you to subconsciously, those two hemispheres can communicate where previously they couldn't.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And so what's interesting is what I'll see when I ask my clients a question, when I notice a pattern in one of my clients, I'll ask them a question to get them to say the pattern themselves. And what will happen is I'll say, does this remind you of another time in your life? Or does this remind you of anything else that you've been through recently? And they'll be stumped. And I'll see them, they'll go like this. Their eyes will go side to side because their brain is trying to make sense of the question. The hemispheres are trying to communicate to give me the answers. And so that's the basis of EMDR. It's that by moving your eyes from left to right, while talking about the trauma it allows the brain to process it in a way it hadn't processed it before. And what I found was that it did help, but I plateaued. I went from panic attacks daily to panic attacks a couple times a week. And then from there, it didn't get better. And so, and that's what I've noticed with my clients is like EMDR has been the most effective form of therapy that I've heard from them, and also that I've read in studies. But it tends to plateau at a point at which the person's not satisfied. They want more results.
Yeah. When you're working with a new client, what are the signs that you look for that shows you that they have unhealed trauma?
Gosh, so there's so many. I mean, it's honestly everything from procrastination to a lack of boundaries, not feeling comfortable saying their needs to their partner, saying no to their friends.
I don't know any women who know how to do that.
That's the problem, right? That's why I have a lot of clients. And we get to heal that, right? And to self-love, like truly loving yourself, body love. Oh my God, there's so much body trauma.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I went through
there is
years of, I had bulimia for years. I mean, I lost teeth. I tore my ribs from my breastbone. Like I had severe bulimia, and I get it. Like I've been there with the body issues. Honestly, everything from physical symptoms. Interesting. There's so many different symptoms of anxiety, but sleeplessness, always feeling kind of nervous, but kind of shaky, needing to use the bathroom a lot, like frequent urination is one of the things about anxiety we don't often talk about.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so honestly, a lot of relationship issues as well, because relationships are where our personal issues come to the surface, particularly intimate relationships, more so than any area of our lives. It's a place
where we avoid them, huh, Raquel?
Exactly.
Yeah, no kidding. I was just like, oh, that explains a lot. Okay, that's why I'm single.
It's tough because we have to face ourselves in a way that nobody else requires us to.
Yeah, I think I'll stay out of that for now.
So I work a lot with women with intimacy, especially with sexual assault. It leads to a lot of issues surrounding intimacy and feeling safe in your body and allowing yourself to feel safe enough to feel sexy.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
For our listeners who don't know what you do for your clients, what is the actual program or programs that you put out there for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have two that I'm offering right now. The first one is my Heal and Be Free program, which is really a combination of group sessions where people are able to get secondhand breakthroughs. And so like if we were in a group session right now, I might be talking to you, Jennifer, about maybe your anxiety, and I might teach you brain talk. But then Raquel, you just learned brain talk as well because she had to learn that. So now you have another tool in your toolbox. So what happens is we all kind of learn from each other. And I noticed from my one-on-one work that every woman pretty much had the same issues. And so when we got together and worked on it as a group, everyone felt so much more connected, so much less alone. And they believed me when I said, you're not the only one going through this.
Yeah.
You know, so much love. So there's a group aspect, and then there's also one-on-one, because I think there are some things that no matter how close the group is, you just want to stay alone. You just want privacy. So there's one-on-one sessions as well. And then I have a step-by-step course that teaches all the tools. We actually have a lesson on Brain Talk that brings you through every step, shows you the script, and gives you examples.
Nice.
I noticed that not every woman was maybe in the position to do the full program. So I also created a monthly membership which includes the course and then monthly workshops as well. So it's kind of like a toned down version of the program where they still get all the tools, and it's for something it's more affordable for people as well.
Wow. Yeah. I love that. I want to maybe kind of jump a little bit and talk about, because I did notice on your Instagram and on your Facebook, at least recently, that you've talked about kind of the coexistence maybe of empaths, highly sensitive people, and narcissists. So I really want to kind of dig into that part of the conversation. But first, if you could, before we get like really deep into that part, as far as the relationship with narcissists, I really want you to maybe describe the difference between an empath and a highly sensitive person, please.
Absolutely. All right. So thank you for bringing this up. So the way I define this is highly sensitive people are born. It's about 20% of the population. And you might be highly sensitive if you can hear really well, smell really well. You can really sense things other people can't sense. And it's really a heightened awareness of your environment. And so, for example, like I'm a highly sensitive person. So I'm very affected by fluorescent lighting.
Mm.
So I have to wear sunglasses in Walmart and I probably look so stuck up. But if I don't, I get so dizzy
Mhm.
and I can hear everything. I mean, I can hear and smell things that no one else can. I actually almost got into being a perfumer because I could smell so well that I was like, I have to use my nose for something good. And I just love going to shops and smelling 200 candles. Like I love it. I actually used to have a scent scrapbook and I would put
Oh,
perfume
wow.
samples in it because I'm so sensitive to it. It was such an experience for me. So that's more, I think of highly sensitive as being more like how you're built. Like I'm
Okay.
physically able to be more sensitive to my environment.
Okay.
And then an empath is made. So I'm
Hmm.
also an empath. And a lot of people don't talk about this, but empaths are made from trauma.
Mm.
Oh,
And I'll explain kind of why. If you grow up in a household where you have a parent who is explosive or
mhm.
who is inconsistent or who punishes you, right? Who has inconsistent punishments.
Mhm.
Anything where you were forced as a child to predict the moods of your caregivers
Oh, Lordy.
and
Wow.
change your behavior in order to appease them, to create a safer environment for you, you learn the skill set to become an empath.
Wow. Okay. I feel seen.
What's wild about that is I used to tell people that my brother and I were so skilled at, I'm trying to think of the words that I used, that we changed our personalities when my parents were divorced, when we went from my mom's to my dad's house. We had different personalities and different roles we played and we would just
Mhm.
change into it on the way over to the house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I grew up in a very unpredictable household as well. And I could tell, I'm sure you could too, by the sound of my father's footsteps, how I needed to adjust myself in order to prevent an explosion.
Mhm.
Like you get so in tune. And because I was highly sensitive, I was able to hear
Yeah.
conversations through multiple walls. And so then I grew those skills in an empath. But here's what the crazy part is. Every single thing in my life has led me to be able to do the work I can do now.
That's true.
Because I'm empathic, I can feel the emotions of my clients and I can help them better. Because I've
Yeah.
been through what they've been through, and I've been through so many different traumas. And because of that, abusive relationships as well, narcissistic abuse, because I've been through so many different traumas, I can help anyone that comes to me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I truly see all this as the biggest gift that God could have given me, because now I'm in a unique position to help people that have been through the same stuff.
That's a very beautiful and kind way to see what happened to you.
Very.
I'm still sorry that you had to go through everything you had to go through.
I hear you. And I appreciate that acknowledgement. One statement really helped me shift how I saw things. And it was Tony Robbins actually said it. And he said, everything is happening for you. Nothing is happening to you.
Mm.
And once I really internalized that, which it took repetitions. I was like, what? But what about this? But what about that? And I
Right.
realized, no, all of this was supposed to happen. All of this was written to my life story. I'm very spiritual, and I really, truly, honest to God, believe that all of this was meant to happen exactly when it was supposed to happen, so I could get to this point at a young age.
Yeah.
I'm 31, and I'm able to do the work that a lot of people that are 60 and 70 haven't done yet. And I feel
Mhm.
so blessed that God started teaching me when I was born about trauma, because now I have like 31 years in the field, right?
So how does the narcissist come into play with the empath and the highly sensitive person?
Yeah. So I think the first thing I have to clarify with people is I think the word narcissist is way overused.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Whenever
Yeah.
someone is self-centered, we're like, they're such a narcissist. I'm like, no, they're not.
Right.
There's a lot of self-centered people, and especially when we see addiction. I've dealt with a lot of addicts in my life. My family, I come from a family of alcoholics.
Yes.
Yeah, and not my immediate family, but my mom's entire side, every male is an alcoholic. And so long line of addiction, right? And knew a lot of addicts just throughout my life. And so one thing is I see a lot of people calling people narcissists, but they're not. They're addicts whose development emotionally was arrested when they started using drugs, which
Exactly.
was usually 13 or 14 years old.
Yep.
And so emotionally, they're a 13-year-old.
Yes.
How are 13-year-olds? Self-centered, selfish, don't care about people.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times we call people narcissists when I don't really know if that's the right verbiage. So I think also consider, is it maybe arrested emotional development? Is it that they're self-centered people? Because a narcissist is a very specific diagnosis. We can just talk about narcissistic qualities in general. When we get someone who is a true narcissist, I see true narcissists as being the difference between someone who's self-centered and a true narcissist is a true narcissist is someone who's self-centered, but like on jet fuel. It's to the most extreme way, the most extreme version. I know 3 narcissists, and it took me a lot of years to meet those 3. About 1 in 200 people are true narcissists. So you likely know some, but unless you're personally affected by them, you might not even know. They might work in the same company you work in, but unless you personally dealt with them, you might not even understand. So I like to say that narcissists and empaths are the perfect dysfunctional match.
There we go.
They are perfect for each other.
Right.
Because the narcissist needs validation and admiration, and the empath needs to fix somebody.
Yep.
And so this is this endless loop, this endless, exhausting energy loop that it doesn't just go around and around, it spirals down as you go around and around. And you suck energy from each other, and both end up feeling like victims, and that perpetuates the cycle. So I think they're absolutely perfect for each other in the most toxic, horrible way.
Right.
And it creates this kind of, it's like a tornado.
Does that happen with addicts as well, or just because now that you've defined this, I feel like most of the people that I know in my life are just, I shouldn't say just, but they're stunted development people. They're not actually narcissists, but I seem to have that pattern with them.
Oh yeah, me too. I dated, I think 3 out of 5 of my major relationships were addicts, which makes sense because a lot of the males in my family are addicts. So I think that there's another thing too. You can be both. You can be a narcissist and an addict. I think it's just important to make the distinction between, considering that just because somebody is self-centered and hurts you doesn't mean necessarily you get to call them a narcissist, but they can definitely be self-centered. I think people use it as a weapon now, like you're a narcissist. I'm like, okay, calm down. You chose to have them in your life.
Yeah.
Like you're not.
It's a pattern.
Yeah. And so I think
is there an element of manipulation to a narcissist that maybe there isn't with somebody who's just self-centered or emotionally stunted?
Yeah. And so I also want to, I feel like I didn't totally answer your question before, Jennifer. So I would say, yes, I think empaths fall into the pattern of wanting to help people, and that happens with addicts as well. And then Raquel, could you say your question one more time for me?
So I'm wondering if there's a difference between a narcissist and a self-centered person, in that there's a level of manipulation that exists when it's a narcissist as opposed to somebody who's self-centered.
So here's what's really interesting, and it kind of just even clicked into place for me right now. An empath and a narcissist are kind of on the same coin, but opposite sides. So an empath is manipulative because we learned how to manipulate ourselves in order to get better results from our unpredictable parent.
True.
Got it.
A narcissist learned how to manipulate other people to get their needs met because as a child, they're either overindulged, abused, neglected, had a really cold parent. So empaths manipulate themselves, narcissists manipulate others.
Interesting.
Yeah,
When you get that combination, that's the easiest pickings for a narcissist because they're already manipulating themselves. So it's not that hard for them. It's not that much effort for them.
Yeah.
An empath, it's like, oh, great. They're going to just fix me. They're going to tell me how to be. They're going to do all the work for me. But they're not actually, they're taking your total autonomy.
I feel like you just summed up my childhood. 100%.
Only because it was mine too, you know? And that's the gift that we get, is that we can see these patterns because we've been through these patterns.
Yeah.
The only reason I was able to get out of the pain of everything I've been through is because I was able to see, like, oh, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they don't hate me. There's nothing wrong with me. They're hurting. They are in pain.
Yep.
They have problems. It's not about me. And as soon as I stopped taking everything personally, in fact, at this point in my life, I take nothing personally. But if I see a pattern, I address it. Like if 5 people tell me that, you know, I'm rude, then I'm gonna be like, I should address this. I should ask myself, am I rude? These 5 people don't know each other. Maybe they're right. I think you get to address things, but I think that you don't take anything personally because nothing is actually personal. It's just their experience of you through their lens of their life experiences.
Yeah. Well, I want to be real conscious of time. We've got about 10 minutes, so maybe a couple more questions before we wrap up. Was there anything that you wanted to specifically tell our audience about that we didn't give you the opportunity to?
Gosh, you guys ask such good questions. Thank you for really being present and being, I feel like, so involved. Like, I feel like every step of the way, you both were just thinking, like, how can I serve the people listening? And I think the biggest thing I want people to know is this is not lifelong. In fact, this isn't years long. It's not decades long. You know, my clients take weeks to heal and months to heal, not years. And awesome. I just want people to know they don't have to suffer, but it does require people getting out of their comfort zone, getting uncomfortable, putting in the work, putting in the reps, because it's only through repetition and emotional intensity that you can rewire your brain. And boy, is it worth it. But it is a muscle and it takes dedication. And you get to go to the gym in your mind every day and you get to do this work. It is a privilege and it's worth it. But in the beginning, it feels really scary and you'll feel really out of control and you'll want to go back. And I just want everyone to know that if you can be uncomfortable long enough, it becomes comfortable.
Oh, I love that.
Wow. Valerie, you are doing so much great work. And literally just in the less than an hour that we've been talking to you, I can completely see that anyone who has the privilege to work with you is going to see some positive change in the way that they think about whatever it is that happened to them, however they're going to go through their life. There's some positive change that is going to come about. So
whatever it is that happened for them.
For them, yes, exactly.
I learned something here today.
Exactly. So, Valerie, seriously, thank you for doing the work that you're doing. And this is amazing. You've taken things that have happened, and which I hate this phrase, like take lemons and make lemonade, but you have done that, and you're now serving that lemonade to others and helping other people. So thank you so much for what you are doing. And I truly want people listening to this to reach out to you and see what benefits they can derive from working with you.
Thank you so much. And you're so welcome. It is honestly, truly my greatest joy to do this work. Nothing makes me happier and nothing fills me up more than watching a woman transform and become the woman that she always wanted to be. It's truly amazing to witness. And anyone that's listening that is interested in this work, the best way to reach me is through my Instagram at Heal with Valerie. Just send me a message. Let me know. Say I listened to the podcast. I'll hook you up with some resources.
Perfect. We'll link to all of that in the show notes, people.
And for the listeners, Valerie has a lot of free resources. Just looking at her posts and all of the guidance on there without even delving into the resources, there's a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely. I also have a free 7-day audio challenge that really helps you. It's 10 minutes every day, and I bring you through the exact same exercises I do with my clients. And so if you want the audio challenge, just message me the word audio. I'm happy to send that to you so you can really start rewiring your brain today and not even wait another hour.
Love it.
well, that's very generous.
I love it. Yes, that was the word that was in my head just now. Yeah,
That's
that's
very
very
generous.
generous. Thank you, Valerie, for doing this work.
Of course. Thank you both so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it and admire the work that both of you are doing as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that was amazing for me because I've been trying to work out these thoughts about my brother and sister for the last 2 years that we've been doing this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I have often wondered in my head, are alcoholics selfish people who then become alcoholics, or because they're alcoholics, they then become selfish? And are they narcissists? Like, all of this I've been thinking for years, because both my brother and sister were deep alcoholics, and growing up with my primary people,
Yeah.
I was always like, are they narcissists, or are they just assholes, or like, and to be fair, they were both really loving people also.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
They were troubled.
this conversation was so helpful to me specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate you asking that question, because about the empath versus the highly sensitive person, that helped a lot of things click in my head for me personally. Yep. I hope for listeners as well. Valerie and I had connected on Facebook via some stuff I was following of hers. And at one point she said, maybe my program could help you. And I was like, yeah, I don't need help. I'm good.
I'm perfect. I'm fine.
I'm good. I think that might be the first one to do that. What did she say? It was a 7-day challenge?
7-day audio challenge. Yeah.
I think I should dive into that.
Yep.
And then maybe Valerie and I should talk on the side, because it sounds like we have a lot of things in common that we could work out. Plus, my own first sexual assault happened when I was about 15. So there's a lot of connection. How'd this episode ring true for you? Because I could tell it did for you too.
So many ways. I mean, the distinction between empaths and highly sensitive people really resonated for me. I guess this is possible, but I see both in myself, the empath and the highly sensitive person. And for her to say that empaths are made based on trauma, that really clicked. And I was like, oh, well, shit, that totally makes sense. All of the things that happened in my childhood, we literally were moving around all the time. Yeah. Like, literally, I can't even tell you how many elementary schools I went to, because I don't even remember them all, because we moved so much. Even when we finally made it to Kalamazoo, I can't tell you how many apartments we lived in, because we moved so much. I could hear the tone change in, my mom and my aunt's voices, and I could tell something's about to happen. Some shit's about to go down. We're about to start packing this shit up and move again, right? Or, whatever other upheaval was about to start. And I am so in tune to tone of voice now that sometimes I'm like, you didn't hear that? How is it possible that you didn't hear the tone in somebody's voice? It was like a freaking megaphone. What the hell? It was right there. And they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. To have that clarification, I'm like, yeah, that tracks. That totally makes sense.
It all tracks, Raquel. When we saw that empath, when you came to visit me, she told you were an empath. On the last podcast we did, she told you you're an empath. And today I would say it's clarified for the third time.
For the third time.
Yeah. The message keeps coming to you, my friend.
Yes. And honestly, I mean, the one thing that I keep thinking is, which kind of tracks back to Valerie's situation, is the things happened for me, not to me.
That's the best thing I've heard today, because it gives all the power back to you, to me, to Valerie, instead of those people.
Yeah, and I can use this skill, basically, that I've learned to help other people, to be a better person, to not hurt somebody else.
Not only can you already do every single day.
Yeah. And we do it here together,
Man,
with the podcast and with each other and with our guests. Because we get to do this amazing work, and we get to shine a light on all these amazing people. And because we have opened ourselves up so much in what we do, because you and I are very candid and very open on our show and with each other and with our listeners. So we are drawing these other people to us because we're open to it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And Valerie is doing that same thing. She's doing that work, and she's helping other people reach their healing so that they can do the same thing. It's beautiful. It's like, we've said this before. It's a ripple effect. Yeah. It's so perfect. I'm so grateful. Yeah, I'm so grateful that we get to do what we do and meet the people that we meet.
Me too.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for being on this journey with me.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast, or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.